My name is Dr. Motti Charter. I'm an ornithologist from the Shamir Research Institute and the University of Haifa. I'm not a virologist. I specialize in researching birds, but I've been doing it for years, and my work is also my passion. During December 2021, there was a huge outbreak of avian influenza that killed thousands and thousands of cranes. Initially, the report said that only cranes were killed or died, but I knew that's probably not the case, just simply that people were not looking in the right places. So I received special permission from the Israel Nature Parks Authority in the Veterinary Service and also the Ministry of Health, and worked directly with Dr. Ronnie King of the Israel Nature Parks Authority. I received a special medication. I took it. Ministry of Agriculture and the Veterinary Services, they provided me special hazmat suits, which was very helpful. Obviously, without them, I would not be able to enter the park. People asked me if I was scared, and the answer is simply no. I had a job to do, and I went to do it. It is well known that birds of prey, diurnal and nocturnal, can get the avian influenza if they eat a dead bird, a carcass that died of the avian influenza. So I finally entered in the park. It was a very weird feeling. I was quite alone. There was obviously the workers from the Ministry of Agriculture collecting the carcasses, but there were not experts around that know about wildlife ecology or ornithology or birds. So it was not long at all, like around 10 minutes before I found my first carcass. And again, a lot of these carcasses are very camouflaged. It's a case of walking, searching, understanding their biology, ecology, and finding them. So here we have a common kestrel that's dead. We'll check it out. I'm not sure, if it'll be dead by avian influenza or something else. Hopefully we'll be able to test, because it may be a little bit too decomposed, not fresh enough. But finding lots of kestrels here. It's probably the most common bird that with barn owls and common buzzards. Super, super sad. What can I tell you? It's a disaster would happen. It's a natural disaster, obviously, this avian influenza. So there's so many trees to check here, and I literally have to first of all drive in between each trees, then I have to walk through them, and it's just so much work to do. And for one person, obviously it's not the most efficient. I think you could easily replace me by one dog. You can do much better than me. That my PhD is nice, but a dog can find way more carcasses than I can. The avian influenza is deadly. About a third of the Eurasian cranes were killed, and it completely is deadly. It affects them, and as you can see here with the crane, it has neurological signs. Super sad to see, heartbreaking, in particular that there is no treatment currently for these birds. This was by far the greatest natural disaster to wildlife in Israel. Here's another barn owl. This one actually has a ring. That means a ring that I ringed it. Looks kind of old, at least 3 years old. I'll be able to look later and look up the number. Super sad. Again, I don't know why it died. But it is an adult bird and it died prematurely, potentially from the avian influenza, but we're not sure. As expected, most of the birds of prey, we found them below their roost. So just like humans, when we feel sick, we go rest on our couch or on our bed. The birds, they go where they sleep. In this case, many birds of prey in trees. So most of the raptors, I did indeed find them below trees. The hardest part is coming out and seeing sick birds that are dying, like this common buzzard that unfortunately was positive and later died of the avian influenza. So here we have a cattle egret that died. Again, it wasn't here actually. This is the second time I went through this area, and it wasn't here the first time. So it was here 2 days ago. Completely fresh, definitely within the last 2 days. This is why I'm here, is that you have all these dead cranes that died from the avian influenza, and after birds of prey come and eat them, and most likely become sick themselves. So because the crane turns into the prey, it's a great way of passing on this deadly virus. So that's why I'm coming and I'm walking below trees and just searching for these carcasses, these dead birds of prey. It's not the easiest of work. Some areas are easier than others, but like this is actually quite easy and nice right here. But it's, you know, it's just basically has to be done. And currently basically I'm by myself here. Hopefully in the future people will come and join me. As you can imagine, sometimes below the trees, the vegetation is just simply so thick, it's almost impossible to find any dead carcasses in these instances. So the search by foot is not always the most effective. An alternative method should probably be used in the future. Here we have a dead common buzzard. We will send a test off and see if it died because of avian influenza or something else. Quite sad. Really hard to see these things. And obviously beautiful birds. And it should be out there flying around hunting prey and not dead like this. So this is another species. It looks like a common sparrowhawk, or part of, or whatever left of him. Obviously, you know, a bird like this, it fell, died, and then they ate him. You can see them in a huge strand of trees here, a giant strand of trees. It's about hundreds of meters long. The poor little guy fell, died, and ate him. Super sad sparrowhawk. So this is a moorhen. I have no idea why it died. It's quite fresh actually. Somebody ate it, part of it, half of it. You know, and birds die naturally in nature, not just because of avian influenza. It's a natural occurrence, but here I was able to take a test and we'll see if it comes out positive or negative. There's always a chance it died because of it, the avian influenza, then after it was eaten, or just died, was predated, you know, which is also natural too, which is a common thing that happens. So this is the hard part. This is a little egret. Poor thing is still alive. I'll take samples. Wow, this, you know, this totally kills you. You know, you think you're strong, but this poor thing is, you know, it's gonna die. I'll check it. Just kills me. This is not an easy thing to do. I became an ornithologist because I love birds, and this is not what I want to see, or definitely not what I want to do. Here's a crane that is sick. Doesn't look good, the poor thing. So during my time in the field, I found that 88% of the carcasses were actually eaten by predators, and I'm sure if I were to return to those carcasses, it would be even greater. It's clear there's a dire need for people to be able, teams to be able to go and collect these carcasses as soon as possible, because as long as these carcasses are in the fields, the spread of the avian influenza will increase. It's also clear that there needs to be much more testing, as was done with the coronavirus, not only in Israel, but throughout the world, and in particular during these times of these outbreaks, in order to try to understand how it's being spread. And the main thing is trying to protect other birds and other wildlife and humans, and also the agriculture business of growing chickens and turkeys. It also became apparent that there's not enough people to collect the carcasses in nature, but also in human inhabited areas, that people were complaining that finding sick and dying birds in and around their houses, and nobody would come to pick them up. We must remember that just like the coronavirus, the avian influenza is mutating all the time. And even though it is deadly to humans, it's not very contagious at this point. And the fear is that it will mutate, and just as it happened with the cranes, that many died this year but didn't die in previous years, that they'll mutate and cross over to be more contagious to mammals and specifically humans. During the period of research, I found 88 carcasses, which is not a needle in a haystack, but a carcass in a park. And there were many more, and we needed so many more people to look and find them. Ultimately, my goal was that people would come and replace me. I believe that it should be the government or ministries. But what came out of this was the media was obviously very interested in the TV, the news, and believe it or not, also because of Parliament member Yasmin Friedman, I even went to the Knesset to tell about what I saw, what I learned, and what I think, and hope the government will make the needed changes for the future. I don't think we should be paranoid, but there is a chance in the future that it could turn into a pandemic. And the most important now is to learn as much as we can from the past and from the present and prepare for the future.